and send out to people. We had a lot of people cancel last minute. I had 3 people tell me that they couldn't on this Sunday. Maybe it's a special Sunday where people, can't on this Sunday for some strange reason. Oh,
Yeah,
Hector's here.
some
Good news.
Sundays are busy Sundays.
Yeah, I realized that making it Sundays was a bit of an arrogant move. Maybe next time I'll have to rethink this Sunday schedule, and maybe I'll also have to think about Tony's schedule. We'll have to think
What
about
about
that.
my schedule, Swartus?
It's too far away. Good morning, Hector. Nice sun where you are. Nice sun where everybody is, even me. I've got nice sun today. Life's nice.
Bloody freezing here.
Oh no. Well, it's freezing too. At least it's sunny though. That's the
Yeah,
good
here.
news.
Got good weather today for this last
It's
Sunday.
it's really nice here. Look.
It's really what? Wow, look at that.
Wow, that I can see.
Oh, Hector, holy moly. Nice life.
It's the view from the hotel. Yes, it's nice.
Wow. Comfortable for a good episode. Thank you for being here, Hector. Wonderful.
All right, so
Yes.
let's get started.
Thanks.
I think that getting started is the best way to do it.
Okay, so this first slide just summarizes or concludes what we've been talking about, because most of the previous episodes we talked about the correct biochemistry of the body, where we started about the breath, so bringing that oxygen into the body. Then we talk also about rest and how regulating our stress hormones help. That is still that biochemistry.
Yep.
What we drink, we talked about a lot about the drinking part, how the liquids that come into our body either alkalinize it or make it more acid.
Yes.
And we also talked about food, because all this makes the biochemistry of our body or the liquids of our body. It makes our blood, and our blood, the health of our blood, it's what summarizes all the metabolic interactions that are going up in the body.
Interesting.
But the thing is that modern medicine mostly focuses on this biochemistry part exclusively. All medicine only just focuses mostly on that. But the structure of our body has put into a side as if it's something not as important, when the whole structure and how it's all distributed it's what makes everything flow properly.
Okay. And so there's 2 things here. We talked about biochemistry, which is the chemistry in our body, the pH, and what we talked about last time, the molecules that come in. That's what we were talking about last time, I think. But now, today, are we going to talk about biomechanics, this idea that our body is like an engine?
Yeah, so this is what will bring the whole picture together. Because without the proper biomechanics, that it's a part that most people are forgetting these days. We even just thinking about food or medicine, it just doesn't make sense. We're just having a big piece of the puzzle missing to have a proper health.
Wow.
So that's why this last episode focuses mostly on this mechanics part.
Which is it sounds so simple when you say it this way, this idea that we have biochemistry and biomechanics. But you know what blows my mind when you say this to me mainly is the fact that you said that they completely forget it. It's true. Like, you have a problem, we give you a pill. You have a problem, we tell you, go see this doctor, he'll help you or anything. And rarely do we actually talk about the mechanic of it. I'm hyped to see what we're going to talk about here, Pepe, but this is a very good start. Let's go.
And especially, that's my main area of research and work. Because mostly still, as you said, when people have a pain somewhere, it's, take this anti-inflammatory, take this pain killer. When you're actually just not doing anything to fix the thing, it's just turning down the alarm sign.
Yeah, I maybe this is not related to what you're going to talk about, but guys, to the saga of my wisdom teeth, I recently this week, about on Wednesday, stopped having pain. And I realized that it was, as I was taking Advil, I was making it worse because I was able to not feel the pain. And so I was continually doing actions, I was opening my mouth too much, I was talking too much, because I wasn't in pain. As soon as the Advil stopped, because of all the stupid things I did when I was feeling the Advil, the pain was more intense. The pain stopped when I stopped taking Advil, because I stopped doing moves that hurt my mouth because I felt them all of a sudden. So I'm thinking the body can do that the same way. Maybe I'm taking Advil to stop my pain in my mouth, but then I stop feeling the pain in my wrist, and I stop feeling the pain in my other thing, and I start doing things.
You keep moving it in a way that keeps hurting it or making it worse.
Yeah, just because I'm constantly on painkillers, I don't really see the other pains that I have, and it makes me go to bad mechanical habits, right? Not bad like having a change in my chemistry has enforced like a change in my mechanics, which I think that's kind of interesting. But anyway, let's move on, Pepe.
Yeah, so we go to the next, and when we were talking about this, we see it in different cultures. Why do some cultures age like this, and while other cultures age this way when we see these two pictures? So in one of them, they're completely covered in insurance and in medicine, and they never skip a meal. They're always sitting. And the other one, it's a simpler life. Well, they just move a lot. The first one, it's a place where we sit most of the day, where we rarely move, where we use cars to take us from one place to another. Yep. And the other one is that we're still using that body movement, because we don't take into account, as we said on the first slide, of our muscular system. It's like, that doesn't matter. That's just for bodybuilders or for football players or for sport people. But the muscular system, it's not of any importance. We can take care of the liver or take care of the stomach or anything else, but the muscular system has been pulled to a different category.
Yeah, it's not about health. Muscles aren't about health. Muscles are about sports and about other things, right?
Yeah. So we go to the next.
But that's not true, Pepe. You said yes, but that's not true. Muscles aren't just about sports. It's about health, right? Do you?
Yeah, of course. Okay. They said it was only for sports, but it's not for that. It's a very essential part of distributing the nutrients throughout the body. So we see it. The next one, it's a little bit just like the evolution of man, how we came to this place where the evolutionary ladder just started coming downwards again, and just because of lack of knowledge or lack of attention to what really matters.
This guy looks like you, Pepe.
Which one?
This one here, he has a good look. He looks like you, hair and a beard. Is this why you took this picture? Is this me here?
I contracted a guy to make all the drawing and make it look just like me.
I thought he looked like the guy at the end with the bikini.
That's me here. If Pepe wouldn't have saved me 10 years ago when I met him, I thought about when we met. I think Pepe, it's been 10 years we've been friends. It's hard to believe, but I think so.
Yeah. Wow. We have a decade of being friends. That's really nice.
Yeah, and for you, it's a friendship that started in your 30s, and for me, a friendship that started in my 20s. We say as we get older, it's harder to make new friends, but I'm not finding that. But it's just maybe because I'm too social, right? That's probably why. Yeah. But regardless, this is an interesting picture, and I do believe it's true, though.
Yeah. Until we make something about it. Until we actually see, is that where I'm heading? Well, maybe I should make some corrections.
Yeah.
And see that just is gonna bring me trouble just ahead of the road.
Absolutely.
So here on the next slide, we start seeing what the muscular system does. So as we said, it's not only for sports or for it's a very intricate and complicated set of system that has so many different uses. It helps us to maintain the structural part of it. It helps pumping all the liquids and all the fluids around the body. Okay. It's what contains all the plumbing inside the body. It's what contains all the electric impulses and what can make communication happen in between different parts of the body. So as we said, the biochemical part of communication, we do it through hormones that are running around the system. but the fastest way of communication runs through our nervous system that connects the brain. That's the processing unit of all our system, that it's telling this thing to start, this thing to stop. We need more blood in this place. We need to stop blood in this place. We need to send the immune system to fight something. So if this communication system starts malfunctioning, if this wire starts getting cut, or it starts having shortcuts, and you don't get proper communication.
Sorry, everybody.
The same thing with it communicates with every organ and with every part. And when we talk about the plumbing system, if the structure is not working properly, if you're not helping the heart by contracting other different set of muscles, you just let the heart overwork, because the rest of the muscles are lower level pumps, if you could say. Like the heart is the master pump, but the other the other muscles, the biceps, the glutes, they just help by contracting, aiding the heart to work a little bit less. You're not overusing it. I don't know if you can get that.
You know what I'm getting from this is that muscles do more than just offer me strength. You know, they help me maintain a better posture, a better structure to my body. You're telling me it also makes things in my body go faster. You know, like when there's like blood that has to go places, when there's messages that have to go places through my nervous system, and when you're also saying that when like my digestive system, because the diaphragm is a big muscle that affects my breath system, and I think you're also saying that the heart is a muscle, and sometimes it has to compensate for the other muscles not being there, right?
Yeah. Could you skip to slide number 8?
Yes.
Please? So like in this one, we see that the main pump of the body of circulation is the heart, and we also talked when we talked about the breath about the diaphragm.
Yes.
If we would put a line of command, like if it was the army or something like that, the ones would be on the top would be the diaphragm and the heart. Without them, the whole system would collapse. But at the same way, if we relay all the work and all the pressure on them and do not activate the rest of them, that's just making that pump to work extra time. Because every time we walk or every time we move, we're helping all that blood and all those fluids to move around. We help the lymphatic system to move all the waste to the other parts of the body. But if we just lay down on a bed, we're just overtaxing the heart, overtaxing all this little pump, and not helping with the other muscles.
So that's incredible. That's incredible to me. Like, how were we not taught this hundreds and hundreds of years ago? You know, like we should have known.
That the stronger the muscles, the more efficient your heart is and your pump is. That's why when they measure your cardiovascular response, and if you try to run or to do something, the heart tries to overcome all that lack of strength of the rest of the muscles that cannot pump that blood. So that's why a person that starts running 1 minute and just cannot make it, because it's just too much. The rest of the muscles have not worked in their whole life. And not just with a little movement,
like me.
So
that's what happens to me.
That's why it's we talk about it. The heart is the center of that muscular system, but it's a complete set of muscles that does the whole work. So it's coming back to this.
So that's so interesting. Like the heart overcompensates. I thought that it was because my muscles were weak. Well, it is because my muscles were weak that I do that. But I thought my heart was weak. But in reality, my heart isn't weak. It works overtime because it's able to do it. Wow.
And it doesn't know how to bring all this oxygen to the rest of the muscles once they start demanding it. So it's not efficient at all. So that's the pumping part of the muscular system. As we said also with posture, that is something that we analyze. When we start using postures that compress our body, imagine the body being an intricate system of tubes, big tubes and little tubes. That it's the veins and the little capillaries.
Yeah.
We see it there on the one on the right. That's the blue. That's a very big tube around the body that connects the intestine. But then these tubes get, imagine you bend them. So once they're bent, that fluid cannot go properly. It starts getting stagnated.
Yes.
It's the liquid start doesn't move anymore. So it's the difference between a stream or like a river or a pond that starts getting all these kinds of algae or
Yep.
things that get stuck, that the water starts getting
Yeah.
like polluted in a way. It has no movement, because movement is what maintains life. Stagnation, it's what rotates that it stops there. It doesn't flow. So-
That's amazing. To me, that's pretty mind blowing. Just this idea that it flowed, then putting, you're already blowing my mind, right, with this idea that our muscles help with flow. Then you're telling me that if I'm sitting in a certain posture, like a hose, it could block and stop the movement properly. And if I live in this posture, so let's say I'm sitting down like I am, I could be blocking proper flow of my liquids in my body and then creating like ill areas. Let's
Yeah,
say.
you just create inflammation, because in that part where the vein is bent, it wouldn't flow the same as if it were straight. So what happens is the veins is not like a tube that you don't get any liquid going around from it. The body has all these structures that have like osmosis. So when there's this stopping of the fluidity of the fluids, that liquid starts leaking out and going to the outside structures.
Wow.
So we're just like onions, like all this different onion skins that all these
Layers.
tubes go around.
Layers. Wow, Pepe. Like this is just super interesting in my opinion, how the muscles, the nervous system, they work together to help us have good blood flow and good feelings and prevent illnesses. This is something that I've never seen about the purpose of muscles. So, wow.
So then that we were talking about those tubes, then if we compare to how we live in our house, how we have the tubing for our pipes and for the toilet and for the shower, and then we have the electricity part. The electricity part is the nervous system. That is the same thing. If we start staying in one single position, that let's say cable, if we compare it to the house, so the little protective thing that has like plastic starts getting worn out and it starts giving discharges. And there's also cables that start, like, because of that position, they're overused and they start making that part of the body always on. Like when you have a contracted neck, that muscle is always working if you have this position, and that nerve tree, that circuit, if it was your house, you were always having an overcharge of electricity. There's always energy going through that circuit and it's always on. So it makes that muscle stay contracted, so also the blood flow doesn't go through properly.
Wow. So the two systems, blood flow and like like a nervous system flow or whatever, like nervous synapse
And
movement.
they're dependent on our structure, on how our structure is supported, and how those muscles support that structure.
Wow. That's impressive, Pepe. This is
So imagine a person that eats perfectly and a perfect diet with the exact amount of fiber and vitamins and everything, but he doesn't move at all. How does he move all this good chemistry around?
he doesn't.
So it's the two things work together. You cannot do one thing without the other. It's a distribution system and the producing or the processing system that gives you all what you need.
So we can't just eat good. We have to also actually move.
Because the stomach, for instance, it's surrounded by a muscle, and that muscle has to move. And when you move along, that it helps that digestion happen.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
every organ is surrounded by some sort of muscle that also makes contractions. The same with intestine and with all of it. The muscular system it's surrounding everything as well as the fascia. The fascia is what covers all these things.
I have a Estela has a great question in the chat. When we have a swollen nerve, how can we lessen the swell?
Okay, when the swollen nerve is caused not by an impact, say an accident that you bumped you crashed something. When it's a chronic thing that you're just overusing it, it means that the muscle that surrounds that nerve, because the nerves go through the muscles, so the muscles that are surrounding that nerve are tight and are contracted, and it doesn't let that nerve glide because that nerve needs to move.
A lot of
So
penetration movement here.
yeah, it starts creating an addition of that nerve and it doesn't move. So the first thing would be to make sure that muscle is relaxed and that it can contract and relax properly. So it's first treating the surrounding structure of that nerve if it's inflamed. Because otherwise, if that muscle stays contracted, that nerve will never be able to release. That's why movement helps a lot.
And is that why we feel pain? Because the nerve is inflamed and it can't go through the muscle?
Yeah, it's like entrapped and it's engrossed. It has inflammation factor. So every time you move that muscle, you are stimulating that nerve. So it's like giving that charge.
And does the pain come from where the problem is, or sometimes the pain comes from an area which is like after or before the problem, or like right now I'm in pain because of a thing I did yesterday to my wrist. I fucked up a bit and my wrist is a bit in pain. I can't. This movement hurts, and is it my pain? Is the inflammation here in my wrist, or is it down or somewhere else?
Well, depends. Sometimes it comes referred from another body part, since it's just like a wire that runs from here. It might be that the wire problems comes from here.
That's
and
what I'm
it's
asking.
the end of that structure that has the problem. But if it has been an impact, it might be a localized inflammation. It's not always.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. And so still asking a follow-up question. So, what is better to get better? What should we be doing? Which is probably what we're going to talk about in the pledge, right? Ultimately.
Yeah. Well, it's finding. First, you would have to assess how your body is, as well as we did on the budgeting episode. We need to know our current state. If we don't know how our body is right now, we cannot know how to fix it. So first is finding, is this muscle that it's this way, or so it's analyzing and assessing what's wrong. Afterwards, you know how to properly work around it. So if we go to the next slide, James.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for this because that was so interesting. Let's go. This one?
Yeah, so this one just furthers the concept we were talking about, how that nervous system connects to every part of the body. It's like the wiring of this machine that we use. So in every part of our spine, there runs a connection to the different body parts and to the different organs. So if there's a problem in any of the areas of the spine, we might get a reflex problem in that other body area, because that's how we communicate from the brain to the organ and from the organ to the brain. It's like like having two computers. It's like the internet. It's how we're also talking through this conference. We have those two ends, and that wires is that connects all that information.
Is this true? Is this whole thing true, Pepe? This is unbelievable. You're telling me that we've defined as human beings which cervical thing of our spine is affected to which part of our body. So like we could like pinch this little chunk of thing and it would affect. Is that what epidural is?
Yeah, they put it exactly where they're gonna make all the spine numb, that it doesn't feel any pain sensation. But that's what
magicians.
With anesthesia, you also do it. If you just want to do an arm surgery and you need the whole of the body to be asleep, you just connect to that branch of the nervous system to make it sleep.
Man, we are magicians. Human beings aren't human beings anymore. Unbelievable. Okay, Pepe, this just blew my mind thoroughly. I thought this was all connected. You know, I see it's all connected, but I didn't think that it came from like the spine and then it went out, you know? It really puts into perspective how powerful the spine is in our body, this picture right here.
Yeah, and that movement and how we maintain that spine, because we see it on the next slide.
Oh, yeah.
It's the shape of the spine that will ultimately decide if you're sending proper signals to the rest of the body or the rest of the organs. And if you're that's when you can start having miscommunication problems, when an organ is firing up a signal, but it doesn't need to be activated. So maintaining the proper shape of your spine, it's crucial for these nerves to be properly running. That we see it on the next one, for instance. That it's more on the muscular side. That how each wiring connects to the different motor reflexes or sensation reflexes of the different parts of the brain. The arm, sorry, this is the arm, and thus the one on the left are the connections to the neck, and on the right we see on the lower spine how these nerves connect to the legs and to the hip structures.
Wow. This is very impressive imagery, Pepe. I'll be honest with you. This must be stuff you found over the years. This mustn't be easy to find this imagery here.
Yeah, it's a collection of things that make everything just build a complete picture of how it works and understanding the body a little bit better. The question you asked me about the pain in your arm, this could help me figure out if it was coming from the neck or if it was coming from the elbow or if it was coming from which part.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Sheesh kebab, Pepe. Wow.
So we see one on the next one. The priority of the muscle chain, as we said, the chiefs would have to be the diaphragm. That the diaphragm is the one that controls the breath, and as we saw, it's the most essential function in the body. And from there, connected to the heart, that we have already seen this picture on that episode. But from that, we jump. Which would you say it's from those muscles? Which would you say it's the next in order of command, if you would have to guess?
Okay, so diaphragm and heart, step one, right? Those are the first muscles. You're asking me what the second muscle is? Hell, I don't know. Maybe the people in the chat, maybe the people in the can say it if they know. I feel like it's hard for me to even wonder what is a muscle. You know, like, is my brain a muscle? You know,
no.
Not really. Right? So, what would it be? I'd figure it must be anything related to my digestive system. That must be the next ones on the list.
Well, that also it's the diaphragm, because the diaphragm is the main mover of all the digestive system. So that one is covered, because every time you properly breathe, you're moving all the digestive system down. And when you eat a lot, you cannot breathe properly because your stomach is so full and your diaphragm cannot go down.
I'm trying to think. Maybe our shoulders is the next one on the list.
Would it be, if you needed to move, would it be more important to move your shoulders or other body part if you needed to get away from a predator or something?
My legs. It would be my legs to run. The reason I said shoulders is because I'm thinking I'm there, I'm dying, I'm on my deathbed, and my heart and my diaphragm is the only thing running. I figured most people could still move their arms, you know, like I figured, but the legs you're saying is the one next.
Well, we have one before that, because actually it's the glutes, the butt muscle.
I was going to say that as a joke.
Well, it's the largest muscle in the body, and the one that has more pump to it, wow. That can move much blood flow than any other one, because since it's so big, every time we do it. And the sad thing is the one that it's least used, since we spend most of our time sitting down. But let's go to slide number 10.
Well, I
This
guess
will bring
so that means that the new fad of people having big butts and doing squats all the time isn't so bad for people's health. That's what you're telling me?
it isn't so bad. We're doing it for the wrong reasons, but it isn't so bad. It's not for twerking or for reggaeton, but it's something that they're going in the right direction.
Oh,
So
nice.
we could make some kind of associate with them this current. They can help
Yeah,
us out.
I just love this idea of the new training fad for girls is you want a slim waist and a big ass, you know? It's like how do you slim one part of the body and make the other part bigger, you know? I figure your body you don't choose what goes small and what goes big, you know?
Well, you make a lot of squats. I think it can it targets most of the butt muscles. So it would be if you do exclusively that, you would have your twinny arms and your big butt. So
Yeah, but I don't know how about the waist is going to follow with that. But anyway, that's an interesting debate. Let's go here on time spent, Pepe. A nice little diagram, very simple. What does it talk about?
yes, this one is when we start being personal to seeing our own development and how our body is. We have to find out during the day how much time we spend sitting, how much time we spend standing up, laying down, or how much time we spend moving. These three first ones are static postures, and static postures is what controls most of our muscular system. It's what builds it, what forms it. If you're a lot of time in one posture, that would be how your muscle we mostly mold it. It's as if you were being a model for painting. It's staying in that position. That's how your muscles. It's like clay. They start forming like clay and they start getting hard. So from these postures, I would like to hear from you which posture is your most dominant position, which posture you spend most of your day on.
I'd say sitting. Sitting
Yeah.
is my most well. You know, I lay 8 hours a day, but is sleeping counted in my math here?
Yeah, it's counted.
I'd say I probably spend a good 6 hours sitting on days where I don't work. You know, days where I don't work. The days where I work, I'm maybe gonna spend 11 hours sitting. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
I work sitting. If I'm not working, I'm going to spend a lot more time moving. I'm going to spend a lot more time standing. But when I'm working, I'd say almost 11 hours of sitting a day, 10 hours of sitting a day, maybe 7 hours of sleeping,
So
laying.
7 of sleeping, 8 of 11 of sitting, so that's 18, and the rest is moving and maybe standing while you cook or where you're washing
Yeah.
your teeth or something.
Standing, I'd say, is a good 2-3 hours a day. And moving is the one that changes the most depending on if it's a work day or if it's a... And that's why I'm sad that I'm teaching online because, you know, if I was teaching in a classroom, I'd be spending 8 hours a day standing and moving while I teach. I wouldn't be sitting. I don't teach sitting. I teach standing. And so
Well,
this is
maybe you could change your setup where you put your camera farther away and you just have a standing. You're standing explaining something.
I actually do have a standing whiteboard that I changed, and I use it every once in a while. It's just that I don't know. It's just that I'm on my computer and I want to have access to my mouse and my keyboard.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird.
So
I need
this
to-
brings us to the reggaeton thing. So if you're sitting all day, do you think you're exercising your glute muscles or your butt muscles, or is it an atrophied muscle that it's not doing anything?
I think it's atrophied because it's not doing anything. And I think my butt muscles are the worst in the world. I'll be honest with you. It's so bad. I sit so much. I can do more push-ups than I can do squats. Who the hell does that, right? Normally people can do way more squats than they can do push-up, but I can do 20 push-ups right now. But if you ask me to do 20 squats, I'm gonna be in pain at the end of my 20 squats.
Yeah. So from there, from the butt muscle, then comes the leg muscles, because they're also very large and very oxygen-rich muscles in the body. That are the quadriceps and the muscles on the back. The hamstrings too are important. So if also you're sitting down all day, these don't get work and they don't help the body actually breathe. actually Taoist masters, they say that we breathe with the legs, because that's how much oxygen we can hold in the body and how much energy we can have in the body. But once again, if we're sitting down all day, neither the butt muscle nor the legs are actually helping the heart or the rest of the muscular system to stay in balance.
Wow.
And we start have also different parts of the nervous system that are turned on. The rest are just they're withering away. They're losing weight.
That's crazy. Well, it is crazy. But are these the only static postures, sitting, standing, and laying? Couldn't we like sit, stand, and lay differently to help our situation?
Because that's what makes it better or worse. Because there are better ways of sitting, and there are very, very bad ways of sitting that will make everything just collapse. So that's why these are like the main postures that we're doing all day, because we're not counting moving, because in moving we have infinite positions that we can do.
Yes.
The idea would be that we would have almost a 50% of the time in static position and a 50% of time in moving positions.
50-50.
That would be like the ideal, that if you see an animal, if you see a dog, if you see a cat, if you see a snake, it's kind of the thing that we're doing, that we also talked about it with light and darkness. We should tend to that balance, not going to one extreme or the other. Because also going the opposite way, like an Ironman that trains to run 40 kilometers and swim, I don't know how much, 20 kilometers, and then cycling, you're just putting the system in override. But at least it would be a good approximation that we did, even like very few people do 30 and 70. But it's making that muscle, system be working better. The first picture we saw in this presentation, seeing the lady and the guy, that's kind of what we're seeing. That's a person that moves a lot during the day, that collects his own food, he squats down, he comes up, everything is moving. He's just making everything flow properly, while the other one on the top is just watching Netflix all day and sitting down on her computer.
Yeah, but so this one thing I'm getting from this, Pepe, is that the whole 20 minutes of exercise a day is a complete lie, because it's not about 20 minutes of exercise. It's about like 12 hours of being in movement more. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, because the thing is, it's not exercise. Because when we just move properly, when you walk, because just that walking, it's the best thing you can do. If instead of using cars to move around, we just walked, that would fix the whole equation.
Wow. That's insane.
You just need to move. You're moving. You're moving your legs. You're moving your butt. You're moving your arms. You're breathing. So it's this invention that we thought that the car was the greatest thing around. Well, if it's a long distance, of course. But look at the absurdity of this. We take a car to go to office, then we go back to our house, and then we take the car to go to a gym to start moving our muscles, instead of walking to your work and then going back.
Yeah.
So why would you need to go to a gym? You just need to move your muscles around. You don't need to be lifting weights or doing stuff. You just have to move. Because if you're stuck in a posture all day, your muscle will start staying in that shape, because they don't get that extension and contraction.
Yep. Yeah.
So your question is that we don't need to be exercising, we need to be moving, and it's just slow move. We don't even need to run. It's just move the things around, activate the other muscles, let the heart relax by the help of other contraction of other muscles. You get into that orchestra of moving things.
That's an unbelievable piece of advice that I've been living by, Pepe. And I, like I said, this is why I moved to the forest like this, because, it makes me move around a whole lot. I need to go get wood every day. That's like 45 minutes a day of movements, of picking up a piece of wood on the floor and putting it in a box, bringing it in. It gives me a whole lot of different exercises to be just alive and moving. It's the same thing for my mom in Mexico.
It's moving. It's not like you're lifting weights and then going for a job, and it's normal life. It's movement, and it's just shifting that belief that if I need to go to the store, okay, take 10 extra minutes and go walking instead of taking the car. That's just enough.
It's even worse now with COVID, because people don't even walk in the store anymore. They order online. They get there,
Yeah.
they pick it up, and they leave. You know, that's like the drive-through. You know, you go through the drive-through, you don't even like leave your car. It's insane.
And for me, some of the mortality rates that are going up again, I think it's because of that, because we're not getting that movement of our fluids, and we start getting inflammation in the body.
Wow.
And that's why if you get it, it's harder for you to actually overcome it, because your body doesn't know how to move the things around and how to clean itself. It's just stuck there, and it's inflammation.
That's so interesting, Pepe. And I gotta say, it's also blowing my mind a little. So and so like and a big another problem I figure of exercise from what you're telling me is that exercise could often overdo it. By doing exercise, we could overdo it and hurt ourselves. Whereas if we just stick to proper movement and we try to move 8 hours a day, you know, and just walking around or just being at home, standing around and going to do the laundry and going over there to clean the floor and going over here to do this.
Or even just taking some rest or some pauses every 30 minutes, stand up and move a little bit and do a little bit of this thing. If you cannot go outside and walk and do things, just take a little thing and just move. There are different movements and very efficient movements that we'll talk about them later.
Well, finally a good reason to have a pet. Because the budgeting episode gave me no good reasons to get a pet, right? After the budgeting episode, you're like, let's kill all our pets. It's a bad idea. But at least now we have a good reason to have a pet. They can help us do these movements, right? Because by going out, taking care of them and all that. That sounds interesting, Pepe. I got to say, this is a way different approach to what people are preaching in modern era of health, you know? I really feel that whole 20 minutes of exercise or quick.
Yeah, but the thing is also that since we're sitting down most of the day, we've been sitting down 20 years. We need a recovery phase. That's when we need specific movements. It's that's to overcome all that neglect of all these years.
The remedy, right? We need a remedial step, like we like to say.
Yeah. So let's go to number 12.
I don't know why we skipped number 9. I don't know what number 9 is, Pepe, but it looks like something from the devil. I was curious to know what it is, but it looks like we're not gonna.
We're gonna see it. Maybe we see it later. So here we were talking how sitting down is the devil mostly, and chairs, especially chairs that sit us at 90 degrees. This is just a little diagram that shows all that compression and all that it does to when we're sitting down, and how we just shift the positioning of all of our systems and digestive and respiratory, and how sitting, they actually are saying it now, it's sitting is the new smoking.
Yeah, I like
it's
that.
It's a catchy phrase, and it works, but finally understanding that sedentary lifestyle is what ruining it and making most of that.
Man.
So
you know, I believe it, Pepe. Even though I spend a lot of time sitting, you know, I believe it because I don't sit with a backrest anymore because I think backrest is pretty bad. I'm happy I live without the backrest now. It forces me into a better position. But I've been trying to convince my girlfriend to move to a back-free chair, but that is not sold. It's not easy, Pepe, and I'm sad she misses this episode.
It takes time because we also talk about it because it's a conditioning of our whole culture. It had to be a cultural change.
Yes.
Telling people to stop sitting down when we go to restaurants, sit down in a chair like this. We go to meet a friend, we sit down in a chair like in this angle. When we work, it's sitting down. When we're surrounded by chairs. We go to a car and we're sitting down in that position.
Yep.
So
I gotta admit that's sad. There's a restaurant I know in Ottawa that there is sitting differences. Some of there's tables on the floor, tables up, tables in the middle. You can use different sitting positions, but there is not one backrest in the whole restaurant.
well, I think that's a good place. I would love to see more places like that. Because we will go to the next slide.
Yeah, absolutely. This one here.
Yeah. So here we actually see mostly what's wrong with when we're sitting down. And this shows us the correct position when sitting down. But if we're gonna sit down, we should do it at least properly. Otherwise, we're just fucking everything up.
Yes.
Just have to make sure that we make the best of this worst position that we can have. So making sure the little bones, that ischions that are called, are always in contact, and we don't round the spine like this. That creates the most compression and the the worst for all the muscles on the hip area. So at least if you're gonna sit down in a normal chair, try to do it like that. So
I'm sorry, I'm reading a question from Estelle in the chat. Maybe we can answer it later later after class. But I do not have clear what I have to do if I have pain. Some days I have shoulder pain that lasts about 3 months. I didn't know what to do, and I admit that if you have pain for 3 months in the shoulders, I can't understand what you would do. 3 months is a long, long time. A lot of Advils. That's for sure.
We would have, as we said, we need a complete body assessment of different sitting position and standing position to see what's causing the problem. Because everybody has different tendencies and sitting in a different way or leaning to one side, or then we go to standing position and movement patterns that we will have to check to really see how to fix a specific problem like
Absolutely.
this. Because when we see that the next one, mostly in standing and sitting positions, it's the hip that decides the rest of our spine position. So making sure how the hips are positioned will help us in distributing the weight more evenly and making sure the spine stays properly aligned. Wow. This is one of the first things to understand, either sitting or standing. It's asking yourself the question, how are my hips positioned? Is it going forward? Is it going forward? Is it on the neutral side? And starting to play with that thing will just take us away from that static posture, because mostly when we sit down, we just fix it in one place. It's making sure it moves up and down.
Yeah. I've started noticing that if I sit down improperly for a long time, I lose the feelings of my legs. You know?
Yeah, because you start compressing the nerves that run down. Because we see what happens in that next slide, the one you put. How, depending on the positioning of our hips, the length of our leg muscles will vary, will change.
Yeah.
So that will just, in a course of years, will just change how it should position, how your muscles are strengthened or loosened. We need, that's why we would need corrective exercise to properly align them and make them the proper length again.
Yeah, this is one of the things that you told me in the beginning of our relationship, Pepe, in a certain sense. The muscles worked like this. They were a band. And, you know, when you told me this, it opened up my eyes to a very different understanding of how our body works. And this picture is a very telling one to me, because you can see how the muscles are very different and how they're pulled differently. Here they look pulled very, you know, it's a very interesting situation anyway. That you know, if you think about it as an elastic, you know, it really affects my mind anyway.
And that elasticity just depends on how much you're moving them. Because once you stop moving a muscle, it's like a rubber band. It just cannot stretch anymore, and you will have to little by little rehabilitate it so it can do that thing again.
Yeah, and rehabilitation is much harder than destruction. And so if you destroyed for many years, you have to do a whole lot of rehabilitation, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's the hip. That here's also showing the different angles and how the spine should, as we saw on which slide was it? The proper slide number 6. If we maintain the spine properly aligned, we won't have any problem with the communication from our brain to the rest of our body. Mm-hmm. And that's why when we go back to the previous one we were in, 16, we see how by taking care of that, just paying attention to the hip positioning and the spine alignment, we would get rid of extra problems in the body. Because we're gonna see now in number 11, because we shift now to the standing position, because we're
number 11. Yeah.
Because I think we could really make it simpler by dividing the body in 5 blocks. This is the picture that we see on the left.
Is this Hector here? Is he in?
No. So this picture on the left, we see 5 different blocks. One is on the head, the next is on the torso, the next is on the hip section, the knees, and the feet. If we're misaligned in any of these parts, then those body parts that are around this area have to work extra hard to maintain the structure, and that's when some muscles are overused, and that's when we have trapped nerves, or where we have a muscle that has a contraction because it has to work all day in order to maintain the integrity.
Yes.
So finding this balance, it's what will make the muscles not be working extra hard in a sense. So that's why we need that posture and movement assessment to see how everything is working and what should we do, which corrective measures or which corrective exercises could bring us back to have all these blocks one on top of the other. Otherwise, we'll just start limping or overusing one leg or overusing one knee, overextending or overusing. We see these pictures here on the one on the right. We see how this person is on the right side. One shoulder is higher than the other. So it's finding that exact picture of our current state of the muscular and nervous system to see how to correct it.
That's so interesting, Pepe, that you're talking to us about alignment of the body like this. And Tony's asking a question. Should he put a pillow behind his back? I wrote, if it helps correct, which I'm not sure if is accurate.
Well, usually, yeah, the pillow on the lower back helps push the hips a little bit forward and maintain that spinal alignment, the one that we saw on slide number 6. As long as we maintain that curve, the one on the left, that's what we should be aiming for. The worst would be the one on the right, that's when we're sitting and all hunched down, because the discs and all the ligament structures start getting frozen in that position. But that pillow on the back usually helps maintain the lumbar curve, and it usually helps to keep the spine up straight.
Cool. That's a good piece of advice. I don't need one. I couldn't put a pillow in the back of my chair because I don't have a backrest. So that doesn't happen. But
yeah, ideally it would be to do our sitting postures without backrest. That way our core is engaged, our back muscles are working, and the muscles of the body are also a little bit activated.
I don't know how crazy it is to say this. But I'll be honest. When you told me in the beginning to sit without backrest, I had gone to this quest of trying to do it, and for the first 6 months, it was unbearable. Like literally, I had a very hard time doing it, and now 4 years later, it's a joke. It's for me, it's easy. I can spend, I spend 11 hours a day sitting without a backrest, and I feel much better. And what I like about my chair is if there's no backrest, you can do other positions that you're allowed to do. You can sit cross-legged. You can sit differently on your chair. And I have the best gift my mom gave me is this chair that my great-great-grandfather did a long time ago. Very solid, very hard to make stools that are nice like this one. I'll show you here. But you see a very nice stool, very easy, nothing complicated. And it even has a storage compartment inside. What else do you want? It's the most beautiful thing ever. And so
how long was your learning curve? How long did it take you to be suffering because your muscles weren't used to it and you were tired for it to actually feel a little bit better?
Slowly but surely it got better, but I think before I got to a point where I don't want any backrests anymore, because now and people hate coming to my place because I often have no chairs with backrests, and they're like, James, can I please, for the love of God, have a backrest? And I'm like, no, you can't. You're here. You have to survive without a backrest. It's how we do. And I'll tell you, 6 months of sitting down all the time is what got me. And when you gave me this advice, I was 25, which is a time in my life which generally you go through this stuff much faster. So I can expect somebody who's older and then has to try to go through this challenge. It must take many years even, to get to it.
It takes time, but also if you add some supporting exercises to strengthen the back a little bit faster, it helps.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, and another thing is also going to the ground, because we're so disconnected from the floor, because it's very important to be able to stand up from the floor,
yes.
Get up from the ground, because that's the hip mobility. Because that's the other problem that chairs have brought to us. Because if you see it in other parts of the world, in Asian countries, like in India or in Japan, where people usually get to the floor and stand up from the floor, these muscles get activated because every time you go down, the leg muscles are activated and they're pumping. The butt muscles are pumping.
Yeah.
So it's using them. You're not resting in that position. Because even switching to sitting on that floor would just help a lot. Because that action of just standing up from the floor, that just activates the whole thing.
Which is why something that I did that really helped me is I sat on the floor for a long time. You know, a lot of my friends play video games, and we all play video games. And, you know, it was so funny to do that because we were all on our computers, all 10 of us. Everybody was sitting down in their big chair, big ergonomic chair. And where I was playing straight on the floor. My computer was on the floor. Everything was on the floor. And they were like, James, you're going to kill yourself. And I looked at them and I'm like, you guys are silly. You're the ones killing yourselves. I'm saving myself. I'm sitting here on the floor learning how to use my body. And you know what's funny is that over time, my friends are learning to adhere to this strategy. I've got some of them that have already moved to multiple setups. And you know, this whole standing desk isn't going to save us, you know, because it's just like you're going from sitting to standing. There's so much that they're missing out of by not being on the floor.
Also, there's a wrong standing position, as we saw it on the other slide where the blocks were switched. You can also be hurting your body by standing improperly. That's why we ask, how many hours are you sitting per day? How many hours are you standing per day? Because if you work on a store and you're a host on a place, you're standing all day. So you need to pay more attention to your standing position to see how to not overuse your joints and how to work them properly. So it's analyzing personally in my case which posture I overuse. Then make that posture the best posture you can have.
Absolutely.
Because that's the one that's forming, and that's the ones that maintain you in that shape, in that posture. It's how everything will circulate, how everything will go through.
Well, Pepe, I don't know if you're done with the episode or what's going on, but it's 12:06. It looks like the time where we generally finish an episode. Maybe you can try to give us some concluding notes to it or something like that. But this was an amazing episode for sure.
Yeah. Well, first realizing and reiterating how that sitting is the worst thing you could do, especially if you're doing it wrong. Yep. So first analyze your sitting posture, because that's the posture you're spending most of your day, most of your life. So if you're sitting down, start sitting less, start moving more, go to places walking instead of using the car, and start thinking about this. It's important how we never realize how sitting is the thing that's making us sick the most.
Perfect, Pepe. This is a good conclusion, and I knew it. This episode, I knew a lot of it. This is nice, and I'm happy we talked about a lot of this. And like I said, to me, this has become borderline a religion. You know, it is the reason why I wanted this to be Sunday mornings. It was because I knew that on Sunday mornings we're used to listening to this preacher preach to us, so I figured we could preach to you about sitting down less. And if you are sitting down, to think about how you're sitting down, and at the same time, to also think about the importance of moving, not doing exercise, of moving, of taking the time to move around and do more with your body than just sit, lay down, and stand up. We talked a bit about Pepe and me, and sorry, Pepe, I know you want to put a word in there, but we talked, me and Pepe, about the idea that the problem with society is these doors. You know, how you have doors and they just enforce you to just walk through them. You know, before we had to crawl under things, go up things. Life was a bit more intricate in our movements, which is strange, but I put this thing to the test. If you guys would see here in my office, I have set up a whiteboard, well, a transparent board, but every time I go to my office, I have to crouch down to enter my office and go up. And I used to never be able to touch my feet, but just because I added this movement to my lifestyle of crouching down before I reach my office.
It's a movement that maybe you do 2 or 3 times a day. It's not something that you have to do 1,000 of them a day to change it.
Yeah, I just go to my office. And how many times do I go to my office in a day? Maybe 6 times? So all of a sudden, I'm doing 12 repetitions of an exercise that I used to never do just because I chose to live a life without a door, and with an experience that isn't a door. And so if you are moving around, you have to change your culture, right? It's not about changing how it is. It's about changing how does your life live. Do you live with chairs, beds, and doors and tables that are of all the same height? If you do, then for sure you're going to be stuck in all these postures. But if you live with, tables that are different heights, doors that force you to crawl under, a table that's different, exercises that, like me, I have to go pick up wood. I am making a life with a different culture. And if I can change my culture of movement, then my body can grow old better. And that's what I think is the nicest part about all this and of what you're teaching me, Pepe, is that you got me early. I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen, down the road in what's the next step of all this. Estella, I sent you the presentation, by the way.
So in this episode, we mostly talked about this static posture because we asked, and most of the people are in a static posture, in a sitting posture. That's the first thing to correct, because if we start talking about movement, we could go on for hours.
Yeah.
Movement. Once you get into movement and to start to balance it out with a limited movement in life, you start discovering a freedom that your body didn't have before. And there are certain movements that are very important to be able to do, like crouching down, like squatting, like extending, like hanging. There's all these movements that are forgotten in our way of life that should be taken into account after we start switching that sitting all day.
Yeah.
So first, change your static posture. Once you change those static postures, we start wandering and moving and doing other things to activate what has been sleeping.
Absolutely. Pepe, that was such a nice episode. Once again, talking about some great tips and tricks to make sure our body is in better shape and what we can do to maintain our bodies better. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm going to tell you that next episode is a very special episode. We won't teach you anything new. In the next episode, we don't have the intent on showing to you new things, but I will tell you what will happen on the next episode. Me and Pepe are going to go through each episode we went through, and we will tell you what you should remember from them and what you can do to make it better for your life. And then at the end of the day, we'll ask you to sign it so that you sign so that 2021 is different for you. We'll give you a goal. You can check which ones you want to follow. You can say, yes, I will try to breathe better. Yes, I will try to have a better password security. Or no, and then you can sign all of them. And at the end, you put your signature and you'll have signed your pledge for the year. We're going to build the pledge together. It's not something we've built yet. We're going to ask you questions. I'm going to ask you, what do you think is this? And you'll have all of it, and you'll be able to know where you're going in 2021. And maybe we redo this in 2022. Start living better 2022 and do another pledge then. See if you guys want to follow with the next pledge again.
Yeah, and it's having that steps to follow, an actual plan to be able to go through with it.
Yes, exactly. Like I said, that's the plan for next episode. I hope you guys appreciated another great class with Pepe and me as, entertainer here to make it better. I hope you guys had fun. I'll see you on Tuesday for our last class and our conclusion to the Living Better Series 2021. You guys rock. Thanks for coming.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, James and Pepe. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Eva. Thanks, Estella. Thanks, Christina. And Father Monroy. I don't know his name of your dad, but probably a name. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thank you. See you Tuesday.
Tuesday. I'm leaving too. Pepe, don't leave me in the private conversation.